the evolution of playing styles in the NBA from the past to the new era in the NBA universe. Playing styles come and go like tides, shaped by new rules, tactical trends, and, of course, numbers. One philosophy that marked an era was back to the basket play in the past. This was the signature of dominant centers, big men who commanded respect in the paint with physical strength, intelligence, and refined moves. They would spin, fake, and execute with precision. Stars like Hakeem Olajuwon, Tim Duncan, and Kevin McHale turned post-up play into art, demanding double teams and creating space for shooters. Their impact went beyond scoring. They caused defensive collapses, dictated the physical pace of the game, and controlled play from the paint. But the league has changed. The modern NBA is based on spacing, speed, and efficiency per possession. Post-ups are slow, less efficient, and disrupt ball movement. Coaches prioritize three-point shooters and agile finishers over players who spend 10 seconds backing down in the post. And rule changes like the defensive 3 seconds and 5-second back-to-the-basket rule also made this style harder to sustain. The math was relentless. Three-pointers and dunks generate more value per possession. As a result, centers started developing perimeter skills, shooting, ball handling, versatility. Players like Victor Wembanyama are doing things unimaginable for a big man in the 2000s. Defense has also evolved. It's mobile, intelligent, and ready to double-team the post. Some moves still survive, passed down from generation to generation, but back-to-the-basket play has become a situational weapon, not the center of a modern offense. Another style that shone brightly was that of the mid-range maestro, the masters of the mid-range shot. From about 8 to 22 feet from the basket, this territory was once sacred. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Chris Paul used this space as a creative laboratory, with perfect footwork, clever fakes, and surgical reading of defenses. Jordan and Kobe turned mid-range shots into spectacle, while CP3 built his career on elbow jumpers. To this day, stars like Kevin Durant and DeMar DeRozan thrive in this area. But the evolution of the league and the rise of analytics changed everything. A player who hits 35% from three produces more points per attempt than someone who hits 45% from mid. Coaches and executives took notice. The result: fewer mid-range shots, more layups and threes. In the 1990s, about 40% of shots came from mid-range. Today, that number has plummeted to about 13%. This isn't a phase, it's a systemic transformation. There are still specialists. Durant is nearly unguardable in that zone, and DeRozan is a master there, but mid-range shooting has become a tactical tool, not the foundation of an offense. It hasn't disappeared, it has evolved. And what about non-shooting point guards? In the past, these players ran the offense without even being a shooting threat. They distributed the ball, played tough defense, and won with pure basketball IQ. Rajon Rondo was the ideal model: incisive drives, brilliant passing, and no perimeter threat. Jason Kidd, in his early years, was similar, a creative genius who avoided the three-point line. But today's NBA is ruthless to players who can't shoot. Spacing is essential, and if a point guard isn't a threat from deep, defenses ignore them, clog the paint, and break offensive flow. Teams want 5 players who can stretch the floor. The math backs this up. Even an average three-point shooter offers more value than a pass-first guard who can't shoot. Positionless basketball demands more. Every guard must shoot to stay on the court. Court vision, defense, and leadership still matter, but without a shot, playing time vanishes. Some players adapted, developing jumpers and staying relevant. Others were left behind. The role didn't just decline, it was forced to reinvent itself or disappear. The era of the enforcers, on the other hand, brought a different kind of energy. These players weren't there to score. They were there to protect stars, impose respect, and control the physical tone of the game. Charles Oakley was Jordan's bodyguard. Bill Laimbeer used intimidation as a weapon. Morris Lucas literally changed the course of a finals with his presence. But NBA rules tightened. No more hand-checking, no more hard fouls without consequences. Today, an elbow sends you straight to the locker room. The game values spacing, shooting, and versatility, not brute force. Analytics showed that aggression without efficiency doesn't earn minutes. The league's branding also changed. It wants highlights, dunks, and logo threes, not blood and elbows. But the enforcer's spirit hasn't vanished. It evolved. Draymond Green is the modern example: intensity, defense, IQ, and an all-around game. Udonis Haslem, even while barely playing, maintained order. Isaiah Stewart combines physicality with skill. The classic enforcer may be gone, but the mentality lives on now with a touch of shooting and game awareness. Then there's the tall, slow, small forward. That tall, skilled wing without speed. With power forward height and a playmaker's touch. Players like Hedo Turco, Lou Peggy Stojakovic, and Mike Dunleavy Jr. used vision, IQ, and shooting to gain an edge. They could pass, shoot, and find space creatively. But in the modern game, that's not enough. The NBA is fast, based on transition and constant defensive switching. If you're slow, you'll be exploited in every pick and roll. basketball also requires defending multiple positions, which demands lateral quickness and agility. Even with a good shot and tactical intelligence, if you can't keep up, you're out. Still, elements of this archetype live on in today's stretch fours and point forwards. Players like Luka Doncic combine size with mobility and creativity. The tall, slow wing has disappeared, but its qualities have been redistributed into more agile, adaptable molds. Today, if you have that size, you need to shoot, run, and switch on defense, or you'll be left behind. Finally, we have the defensive specialists, players who were on the court solely to stop the opponent. No flash, no offensive plays, just effort, defense, and timing. Bruce Bowen didn't wow with handles, but he was a constant shadow on the best scorers. However, that profile became a problem in the offensive era. If you're not an offensive threat, defenses ignore you, clog lanes, and kill offensive flow. In today's NBA, every player must contribute with spacing or finishing. A player who offers nothing with the ball hurts his own team. The game now prioritizes versatility and efficiency. That doesn't mean defense is dead. It's still essential, but one-dimensional specialists can't survive. Today, you have to defend and shoot. Players like Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby show it's still possible to make a defensive impact, but only if you punish the other end of the floor as well. This is the modern NBA: fast, analytical, spaced, and versatile. The old archetypes haven't disappeared completely, they've transformed. The game evolves, and with it the players too. Whether it's a center shooting threes, a guard defending and hitting jumpers, or a forward playing like a point guard and a big man, the NBA never stops reinventing itself. And the fans, they watch history being rewritten, night after night. The evolution of NBA archetypes, the end of specialization, and the birth of versatility in today's modern NBA. One thing is certain: if you're on the court and not contributing offensively, no matter how elite your defense is, you're probably headed to the bench. Professional basketball has changed, and so has the way players are developed. Today, everyone is trained to do a bit of everything. Nobody wants a one-dimensional specialist anymore. If you're not scoring or at least drawing defensive attention, your steals or blocks lose value. Changes in NBA rules, which prioritize offensive freedom, have further reduced the space for old-school pure defenders. So what happened to those classic archetypes? They evolved. The well-known 3-and-D players emerged, solid defenders who can also shoot accurately from the perimeter. Big men now need to anchor the defense and also contribute on offense, whether by scoring or distributing the ball from the post. Versatile wings have become central pieces, capable of guarding multiple positions while also handling the ball like point guards. The role of the exclusive defender has basically disappeared, but its spirit survives in those who defend intensely while also spacing the floor with reliable shooting. Defense still matters, but it can't be your only tool, not anymore. Another archetype in extinction is the classic undersized point guard, the sub-6-foot player who won over fans with courage, speed, and creativity. Legends like Muggsy Bogues 5'3", who ran an NBA offense for over a decade, Earl Boykins 5'5", who slipped past defenders like a mosquito at a barbecue, or Spud Webb, who won a dunk contest at just 5'7", left their mark. Calvin Murphy and modern Isaiah Thomas prove that size isn't everything, combining talent with high scoring. But today, this profile has nearly vanished. The modern league hunts mismatches, and a short player is, by definition, a target. Switch-heavy defenses, athletic wings, and complex schemes make it nearly impossible for undersized guards to survive in the NBA. On offense, if you can't shoot over taller defenders or finish through contact, you're out of the rotation. Today's NBA values spacing, shooting, and versatility. Tier guards dominate, they defend multiple positions, help on the boards, stretch the floor, and, above all, offer more tactical options. For a short guard to make and stay in the league, he must be exceptional, almost legendary. Even so, the undersized icons left an eternal legacy. They proved that heart, skill, and determination can defy physical odds. They may have disappeared from lineups, but they're etched into basketball culture. You can't teach height, but you learn to respect effort. Moving on to another fading role, the pure shot blocker, the classic big man who lived in the paint, intimidating opponents while barely touching the ball on offense. Mark Eaton was the mold. He swallowed shots, averaging over 3 blocks per game in his career. Manute Bol took it to the extreme, with more blocks than points scored, an almost surreal feat. Greg Ostertag didn't scare anyone offensively, but no one wanted to meet him at the rim. However, that role vanished as the game expanded to the perimeter. With offenses based on spacing and constant movement, big men who can't leave the paint become easy targets. If a big man can't switch or defend on the perimeter, he simply doesn't survive the current pace of the league. Offensively, the demands have also increased. Bigs need to know how to pass, shoot, or at the very least finish consistently in traffic. There's no more room for a dunker spot player who fumbles passes or misses free throws in crucial moments. There's still room for rim protectors, but now they need to do much more. Rudy Gobert is the modern example. He still dominates, the paint, but also anchors modern defensive schemes and contributes in multiple areas. Rim protection remains essential, but it's now just one piece in a much more complex puzzle. The pure block specialist has become a museum piece. The same goes for the perimeter shooting specialist, the so-called floor spacer only. These were players who lived in the corners, waiting for a pass to knock down a three. Steve Novak, James Jones, Anthony Morrow, Matt Bonner, all were pure shooting weapons with little else to offer. But over time, the NBA realized that just shooting isn't enough. If a player doesn't defend, handle the ball, or contribute in other ways when their shot's off, they become a liability. In the playoffs, this type of player becomes the target of relentless attacks. Today's game demands more. The movement, fast pace, need for quick decisions, and off-ball contributions mean players must have more than one function. The result, the rise of 3 and D wings, floor spacing bigs, and hybrid players who can shoot, defend, and read the game. The old static shooter has become obsolete. The modern NBA is too fluid for statues with a good jumper. Now, you will shoot and do something else, or lose your spot to someone who can and who remembers the legendary shot stoppers, players whose role was to contain or at least make life difficult for a superstar. They weren't there to score, they were there to frustrate. Shane Botier, for instance, knew opponents' moves like he was studying for a test. Tony Allen, praised even by Kobe Bryant, was tireless. If he scored 2 points, that was fine, as long as his opponent didn't score 20. Gary Payton chased Michael Jordan in the NBA Finals, but over time, that role too was reduced. Today's offensive stars have it all: step-backs, floaters, fadeaways, and constant off-ball movement. Isolations are increasingly rare, and the game depends more on smart team defense than on individual matchups. Moreover, modern rules have reduced physical contact, no hand-checking, no aggressive body play. The result, even the best defender, it needs help or they'll get exposed. But the idea survives. The mission to neutralize an offensive threat still exists, just now with more brain than brute force. Lastly, we have the rebounding rim runner, the energetic big man who sprints in transition, grabs boards with hunger, and finishes lobs with explosiveness. Clint Capella, DeAndre Jordan, JaVale McGee, and Dwight Powell define this role. Big, athletic, efficient in pick-and-rolls, but even this traditionally valued profile is under pressure today. Floor spacing is mandatory. If your big man can't even threaten from mid-range, defenses collapse, the paint clogs, and the offense stalls. Moreover, these players need to defend outside the paint, switch on pick-and-rolls, hold their ground on the perimeter, and, on top of that, hit free throws consistently. If not, they become easy targets or victims of intentional fouling strategies. Coaches value effort, but they won't sacrifice efficiency and versatility. There's still room for this type of player, but they must evolve. If a rim runner can improve their touch around the basket, lateral movement, and defensive consistency, they can still be valuable. The evolution of positions in the NBA in the old NBA. Being tall, strong, and able to dunk with force was enough to earn your place on the court. But today, that formula alone no longer guarantees success. The league has evolved. The game has sped up. Versatility has become more valuable than sheer physical dominance. Now, the player who doesn't expand his game, who doesn't shoot, defend multiple positions, or contribute with tactical intelligence is left behind, especially in the fast breaks that dominate today's style. Twin Towers, the myth of the giant duo. The concept of the Twin Towers was for a long time synonymous with absolute dominance in the paint. The strategy was simple and effective. To 7-foot centers patrolling the rim, gobbling up rebounds and intimidating anyone who dared enter the restricted area. Hakeem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson started this legacy in Houston, leading the Rockets to the finals by combining wingspan with technical skill. Later, Tim Duncan and David Robinson turned that model into a dynasty in San Antonio, with one of the most suffocating defenses in NBA history. Poe Gasol and Andrew Bynum kept the flame alive in the Lakers, stacking titles with refined technique, physical presence, and low-post dominance. But the league changed. The pace accelerated. Shooters started pulling from the perimeter more often, and suddenly, having two giants planted near the rim became a problem, not a luxury. The paint became congested, spacing disappeared, and ball movement stalled. When the two big men can't shoot, the offense becomes predictable. And defensively, the situation was even worse. Those giants couldn't keep up with quick guards, or switch on the perimeter without getting burned. Today, if your center can't defend on the perimeter, he's benched. The mismatch became the game plan. But the concept of the Twin Towers isn't dead, it just evolved. The Boston Celtics play Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis together because both space the floor and protect the rim. The Milwaukee Bucks pair Giannis Antetokounmpo with Brook Lopez, combining size, spacing, and elite defense. The Minnesota Timberwolves innovate by pairing Karl-Anthony Towns with Rudy Gobert, one as a stretch power forward and the other as a traditional anchor. Today, if you want to play with two bigs, one of them needs to know how to shoot, switch, defensively, pass, or do more than just be tall. The classic model of two towers that just occupy space in the paint is extinct, but the essence survives, adapted to modern times. Big body, the weight of physical presence. Big bodies with the bruises of the NBA. Stocky players with low centers of gravity, using every pound of mass to dominate short spaces. Glenn "Big Baby" Davis was the embodiment of the style. He used his body to carve out space, set brutal screens, and fight for rebounds. Zach Randolph refined the model, turning strength into points and boards every night. Jared Sullinger found his niche as a steady center who knew how to protect the paint and collect offensive scraps. But the game became faster, leaner, more spaced, being heavy shifted from an advantage to a disadvantage. Modern offenses pull bigs out of the paint and expose their slowness in pick-and-draw plays. Big bodies are vulnerable in transition and completely lost when forced to defend the perimeter. Plus, modern spacing killed the back-to-the-basket game. Drop steps and hook shots lost value to threes and quick drives, and without being able to run the floor, shoot, or defend multiple positions, these players lose their spot in rotations. Add to that the physical toll. Carrying so much weight over 82 games leads to injuries, fatigue, and declining performance. Coaches adapted and rosters evolved. Still, the big body model lingers in small moments, especially in physical playoffs or as mentors, teaching dirty tricks in the paint. Today, having a body isn't enough. You need mobility, spacing, and basketball IQ. Otherwise, the big body becomes just dead weight on the court. Small ball 5, the end of tradition. The small ball 5 revolution completely redefined the center position. Forget 7-foot rim protectors. Enter the undersized but versatile players who maximize speed, spacing, and defensive switching. Draymond Green, at 6'6", is the face of this revolution. His ability to guard every position, orchestrate the offense, and keep the team cohesive without scoring much brought multiple titles to the Golden State Warriors. PJ Tucker took it to the extreme in Houston at 6'5". He faced 7-footers and still sprinted to the corner to shoot threes. Bam Adebayo at 6'9" became a defensive Swiss Army knife, guarding from guards to centers, initiating plays, and anchoring the Miami Heat's defensive system. But small ball has its weaknesses. It suffers on the boards, lacks rim protection, and demands relentless collective effort. Everyone has to run, defend, and sacrifice. It was the key to the Warriors' success, but today the league is with the rise of Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid, the traditional center has regained relevance. Small ball is now a situational tool, not a base system. It's used to disrupt rhythm, create chaos, and pull big defenders away from the paint. The small ball 5 didn't kill the center, it just forced him to evolve. Now, to play the 5, an athlete must shoot, switch defensively, or distribute. Otherwise, he becomes a target. Shot chucker, the no-filter shooter. The shot chucker is the player who ignores the clock, teammates, and common sense, lives to shoot, even when the stats say otherwise. Brandon Jennings is a classic example, pulling off-balance floaters, transition pull-ups, and forcing contested shots as if every possession was an MVP audition. The volume was high, the efficiency, not so much. Easy to spot, high usage, low efficiency, and few assists. The offense stalls when the chucker gets excited, even if the whole team is begging for patience. Sometimes it's ego, other times overconfidence, but the result is the same. Offensive flow dies today. With the NBA driven by analytics, this type of player is going extinct. Franchises prioritize ball movement, efficiency, and smart decisions. Those who don't adapt disappear. The shot chuckers who survive are the ones who've learned to cut out bad shots, move the ball, and accept that playing smart pays more than showing off. The shoot-and-pray style became a piece of tactical history. Undersized shooting guard, the small, big problem shorter than 6'4". Undersized shooting guards defy the league's logic. They don't have the height to guard wings or the physical edge to assert presence, but they make up for it with aggressiveness, skill, and instinct. Allen Iverson, at 6'0", ignored physics, crashing into giants and still coming out with the bucket and the foul. Eric Gordon, with similar height, carved out space as a tireless shooter and cutter. The problem, bigger defenders overpower them. Coaches exploit them in the post or with shots over the top. Offensively, they must be masters of creative finishes, reading the game, and moving off the ball. The modern game favors tall, versatile guards. For the short ones, every minute on the court is a trial. Today, undersized shooting guards survive by being hybrids, controlling the game, defending with grit, and hitting crucial shots. The margin for error is tiny. There's no room for lapses. They walk a tightrope, but those who balance talent and intensity make noise. Set shot only, the static shot in a dynamic game. This is the kind of player who looks like they walked out of a black and white film into the 4K era. No lift, no movement, just planted feet, squared hips, and a set shot as if their knees had a no-jump clause. Dolph Schayes made this work in the 50s, with arcing shots that defied defenses. But that style became a relic in today's basketball, with shooting on the move, off the dribble, And in high-speed situations, a player who can only score when stationary and open becomes a defensive target. The league demands mobility, dynamism, and explosion. The set shot, as a specialty, didn't survive. It was swallowed by athletes who jump, run, and fire without hesitation. In the past, basketball was played at a different pace. Players like Brian Winters, though they didn't get much lift on their shots, had a clean, efficient, and absolutely lethal form for their time. The famous set shot shooting without jumping. NBA courts, just like short shorts and baskets made with peach crates. But time passed, and with it, the game evolved. Today, defenses are longer, faster, and more aggressive. Try keeping your feet on the ground against a 6'9" forward with a 7 feet wingspan and see what happens. The set shot has become predictable, easy to contest, and vulnerable to any kind of defensive pressure. That's when vertical jumping entered the offensive game, completely transforming shooting mechanics. Players like Hank Lucetti introduced the jump shot, and it changed everything. Suddenly, the ball was being released above the defender's reach. Movement became a fundamental part of the shot. In the modern game, with its fast pace and extreme spacing known as pace and space, shooters need to pull up on the move or in transition. The set shot became a museum piece, more of a liability than a weapon. There are still remnants of that technique. Free throws, for example, are essentially glorified static shots. Big men like Brook Lopez and Nikola Vivivio still use shooting mechanics based on balance and rhythm, with minimal lift, especially in catch-and-shoot situations, where a quick, clean release is the priority. But the pure, full-time static shooter, that role has gone extinct. The NBA has evolved past that. If your feet don't leave the ground today, the only shot you'll get off is during warm-ups, maybe if no one's guarding you. Yet, there's a special category of players who practically defy gravity with skill, not with hops. These athletes barely leave the ground and still rise above the competition. They don't throw down windmill dunks. They don't swat shots into the upper deck, but they win with intelligence, positioning, and pure skill. They beat opponents who can jump over traffic cones, all while staying nearly grounded. Think Nikola Jokic. He plays like gravity is just a suggestion one he politely ignores. With a reported vertical leap under 20 inches, he still dominates every possession with refined touch, court vision, and perfect timing. Larry Bird was similar. He looked like he was playing with ankle weights, yet he hit clutch shots, won 3 MVPs, and made defenders look slow in slow motion. Adrian Dantley lived in the paint, scoring with his back to the basket, even though he was shorter and less athletic than most current guards. These players didn't need hops. They had footwork, patience, and above all, real basketball skills. But limitations exist. They don't make highlight reel blocks. They don't leap for rebounds over 3 defenders. They rely on angles, positioning, boxing out, and sheer stubbornness. Winning with touch and technique, floaters, pump fakes, reverse layups, anything to avoid getting sent into the third row. Even now, there's room for this archetype in the modern NBA. Jokic doesn't just survive, he wins MVPs while moving, like he's in a weekend pickup game with guys in their 40s. Teams understand the value of players with high basketball IQ who may never make a dunk poster, but who control tempo, punish mistakes, and win games. Vertical leap dominates the highlights, but the ground-bound players dominate the details. They prove that success isn't always about how high you jump, but how well you understand the game when your feet barely leave the floor. And then there's the Charge 5, the bigs who don't block shots but plant their feet and draw offensive fouls. Instead of flying through the air for cinematic blocks, they occupy space, read the play, and absorb contact. Anderson Varejao, for example, practically built his reputation on that. During the 2006 to 2007 season, he led the league in drawn charges with 99. That's not stylish defense, that's bruised up defense. DeMarcus Cousins, known more for offense and temper, was among the league leaders in charges taken in 2014. But this kind of player is becoming rare. The NBA values mobility, wingspan, and versatility. Taking charges has become a niche, with rule changes and the risk of being penalized for flopping. Plus, absorbing contact from a 6 feet 8 inches wing at full speed isn't exactly a recipe for a long career. It's admirable but painful. Still, coaches know the impact of a well-timed charge. It can shift momentum, put a star in foul trouble, or secure a critical possession. These players may not show up in the block column, but they make a difference when the whistle blows and the ball changes hands. The Charge 5 doesn't anchor a defense in the traditional sense. They're a wall with a heartbeat. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it's essential at the right moment. Now, let's talk about the turtles, the slow ones. Those players who move in slow motion, yet somehow dismantle entire defenses. They don't blow by anyone. With speed, they don't soar over rim protectors. They just ... think better. Kyle Anderson, nicknamed Slow-Mo, is the perfect example. He looks like he's playing in a different time zone, but he's always in the right place, making the right play. At 6'9", he uses his brain and arm length, not burst. These players don't win races, so they avoid them. They win with angles, timing, anticipation. They see the play before it happens. In transition, they're vulnerable, but in the half-court, they're maestros with elite vision. The turtle archetype isn't flashy, it's stable, smart, and in its own tempo, devastating. Sometimes, slowness wins the most. Finally, the PG cone archetype, the point guards who simply can't defend at the highest level. They're usually short, slow, laterally, and easy targets. Think of a training cone, but with sneakers. The name that immediately comes to mind is Jimmer Fredette, a pure offensive talent, but no defensive presence. At 6'2", he was easy prey for bigger opponents. Add slow feet and minimal resistance on drives, and his defensive rating often exceeded 110 in his last NBA stint with the Phoenix Suns. That number jumped to 116.6, a tactical disaster. Since he was often tasked with scoring, he had little energy left for defense. Teams had to build specific schemes to protect him, with constant switches and extra help, putting massive pressure on the rest of the lineup. In the playoffs, these flaws become glaring targets. His career shows if you can't defend, you'd better play in a league where defense is optional, like the CBA in China, where he thrived. But the cone guard no longer has a place in today's NBA. No team wants to hide a defensive hole walking around on the court. This is the reality of today's NBA, a constantly evolving league where every type of player has value if they know how to play. From the skill masters who barely leave the ground to those who win games with intelligence and anticipation. Basketball has never been just about jumping high. It's about playing the right way, mastering not just the physical, but the mental. Because in the end, it's not always about how high you jump, it's about how well you understand